Hi, everybody. Welcome back to another episode of Our Future 101. Today we have a special release because we have Josephine on our podcast. She's going to be a guest speaker today, and she's the founder of Concerned Students of Ontario.
Yes, I am.
Welcome, Josephine. So tell me a little bit, do a quick introduction of yourself.
Sure. So I'm Josephine Ieraci. I am a fourth year University of Toronto student. I'm from the Visual Studies Department, specializing in art history, and I'm also a classically trained artist.
Awesome.
I'm glad I'm here to talk finally.
Yeah, you've got an incredible story because, I mean, you've gone through censorship firsthand, and I did want to discuss that today because there's a lot of bills coming out, Bill C-11, Bill C-10, C-36, all kinds of things just to censor our speech and censor all the things that we're talking about so that, only the right things are promoted. So we're going to talk about that. But first, I just want to gauge your experience in terms of being a UofT student. You're now going to be a graduate in the coming months. So tell me, what was the experience like?
So when I initially started university, I was in my, mid-20s. So I was an older student, and I found my experience to be different because I wasn't too concerned about certain things. Like, I know a lot of young people are more concerned with the social life. I was more concerned about the academics and just getting through and making connections and making my life work out. And the first 2 years, I'd say it was pretty good. I really enjoyed it. It was challenging. I hadn't had a challenge like that in a while, and doing all this like research and essay writing was a big thing. That was a big change from going from the workplace back to school. But when I got to third and fourth year, I started to notice changes in how professors perceived my work and how they were critiquing, like the little critiques that they made, which didn't make sense. It was more of a personal thing. It wasn't really academic based. And I started to not want to work as hard anymore because I knew I couldn't impress these people or get anywhere without having to do what they wanted.
So they judged your character rather than the work that you did.
That and like the opinions you held or the choice of research that I would use, even though it came from the same library, from the UofT library. Like there was these weird minute things that they would say or do.
Do you have any specific examples?
Yeah, I was losing marks on my assignments. Literally, I had a comment that said, I don't like the research you chose.
Nice.
Like, okay, that came from the library, the Pratt Library, which you recommended. So I don't know why you can't like the research. That's a bias right there.
Yeah. So no reasoning in terms of like, oh, this research is bad because ABC.
No,
it's just like, I don't like it.
I don't like it. Oh, I love the grammatical attacks. Like I lost 10 marks on an essay once because the professor didn't like where I put commas. I'm not kidding.
That happens quite often, and this was the same experience I've had in terms of my academic studies and writing essays as well. It's like a lot of times you're just penalized for either the topic you chose or of course the position you chose in terms of the topic that's being discussed, because it's like we had social studies and I guess cultural social studies that we had to take. Kin 1000 is the first course you take as an undergrad of a kinesiology program in New York, and everything that was talked about, it was like promoted that one view.
Yep.
And it seems like you experienced the exact same thing at UofT in the arts program, where eventually after several years of developing relationships with the professors or maybe some other TAs, they decide to say, nope, I don't like that.
Definitely.
Doesn't agree with me.
Yeah, and it's weird because in first and second year, they don't really I didn't really get bothered by it much, and I think it's because of the nature of the assignments weren't really about your opinion as much. But when third and fourth year, when you really are trying to make a name for yourself, trying to stand out and coming up with different ideas, that's when you can face a lot of rejection. And I don't mind rejection as long as it's valid. But if
Hmm.
it's, I don't like your placement of commas, I don't like your research, well, that's not valid. Like, what is wrong? Like,
Yeah.
explain
How can I
yourself.
improve? Yeah.
Yes, I did have an experience where I'm an A student, and I had an essay in which I received 78, but the entire essay had positive remarks on it. So I had no idea what was wrong with it. And when I asked the professor, she wouldn't tell me. She said, just live with it.
Yeah.
I'm like, how am I supposed to live with something that doesn't make sense? Like, you're supposed to provide feedback and
Hmm.
explain to me what went wrong. And clearly, by your comments, nothing went wrong. So you're just arbitrarily choosing that grade for me.
Yeah. It's biased in that sense.
Hmm.
Well, but you did mention like that you came into university more caring about the academics, right? Because a lot of students go into university for God knows what.
Yeah.
I mean, at this point, a good college is considered, some or a good university is considered something that has great parties, great social life, and that's what students my age, like when I was in high school in grade 12, it's like, oh, where are you going? Where are you applying? And typically, it's the universities that are known for parties, that were the popular ones, and that's what people are looking at. But it's great to see like a perspective from a student that actually cared about the academics, which is exactly what the universities are for.
Hmm.
um, but like what's the experience like in terms of the professor's stance on like open speech, open debate? Was that like, did you have open debate in the first 2 years,
Yeah, we were
or did it change later on?
like, it's kind of strange because I was very much a student who participated a lot in class.
Mhm.
And to the point where I got told, put your hand down, let someone else talk, because no one else would talk. No one would participate. So either A, they didn't do their homework and they're literally there to just party and get by, or there is a fear to speak. There is a, like, you can sense tension sometimes or hesitation depending on the topic. But the fact that even for something so simple as describe this painting that's on the projected screen, it's like, why is no one participating? It's so easy. You're looking at it. You can't describe what you see. There is a fear to talk. Even if the students, let's say they really love the professor or agree with everything the professor says, they still are afraid to talk. And I
Mhm.
was always kind of mystified by that because I'm like, how do you expect to get a good grade if you can't show that you
Right.
understand the work?
So, were the professors okay with judgment of their opinions? Like, if the professor, obviously a professor is going to have his own opinion about a certain topic that you're discussing,
Mhm.
but like what I'm trying to get at is like, are other opinions welcomed by students? Because that's not something we've seen from
You
other guest
know,
speakers that we've had.
I guess there wasn't that many confrontational discussions or like hard topics.
Mhm.
There was on a few occasions, but it went over pretty well. Um, the professors at the like in these particular instances I had were very calm about everything, and there's this whole thing like let people speak, and if you're not understanding, ask the questions that need to be asked. But because there was so much hesitation to have certain discussions, there wasn't like a lot of students just hold back. So there isn't as much. So there's already a setting of fear in the classroom. I did get into a debate, a bit of a heated debate with a student once in one of my art history classes. Funnily enough, the TA agreed with me so, on the subject. It was about, I hate this topic, the gaze, they call it, as in how women in art are painted in a way that is always meant for the man to gaze at them. They're always in like a passive sort of position. But then I argued that's not true, because if you look at a lot of Renaissance sculpture of men, they're muscular and they're meant to be looked at in a commanding way, but you're still gazing at them. And we went in this whole debate about it, and this girl was just a bit of a crazy feminist, and eventually the TA had to was like, yeah, Josie is right about whatever. I agree with her, and yeah.
Took your side of the argument.
Yeah, because she didn't have much of an argument, and then she kind of when I made that point, she just kind of shut up, and
Yeah.
which was fine. But there hasn't been anything crazy until when we get to my story, the
Yeah.
censorship one.
Do you think everybody should go to university?
Oh no. No. It is not for everyone, and that's not a way. I'm not being offensive, and when I say that, I just mean that it is an academic environment, and you have to be able to do the readings, the research, the writing that's involved, and you have to understand the concepts. And if you're not understanding stuff, you have to be willing to speak to the professors or to the TA, and so many people don't. Every day, every class, the professor's like, no one has been to my office hours except for a handful of people. Well, where is everyone else? What are they doing? When you look at the marks of people in the classroom, everyone's getting B's or below. So there's definitely a problem. And I think it stems from the curriculum from elementary to high school. People are not learning enough or well enough to be prepared for what's available, what's going to be what you're going to have to do at university. Because in one of my first year classes, it was Art History 101, but there was a grammar component to the class. So on Monday, it was just grammar. And you had to complete, like, it literally felt like high school work. And I was like, how am I doing this? Like, this is so weird that we're doing this in university.
Yeah.
So people are not prepared to be in your university. That's a problem. There's a lack of work ethic, and that's a whole other topic. Like, I really think elementary and high school is just glorified babysitting, and by the time these kids get to the real world, they can't handle it. They're not prepared.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think I've observed like this culture of safety that's going on around, and this babying of students, especially in high school. It's pretty pathetic what's happening, because I get to tutor these students as for a living right now, and it amazes me because they kind of show up to a tutoring session, and it's like, so what now? It's like, I'm just there to answer your questions. If you really care about your education or you care about succeeding, you would have questions. You would have like literally a lesson plan ready, because I'm not your teacher. I'm just there to help you out.
Yeah.
I'm not there to present a plan. But it's like there's this entire culture of safety revolved around, protecting students and protecting them from real life and protecting them from real challenges, because, oh my God, it's going to break them. But I think that's what's lacking. That's what's missing, because these students come out of high school and then they think the world is all rainbows and unicorns. And then they get hit by real life in university, or maybe second, third year university. And it's like they can't handle it. They just...
No.
They fly off the radar.
I actually felt very embarrassed being in the classroom with some of these students. I felt embarrassed for them because they couldn't, here's an example. I was in one of my medieval art history classes, and we had to look at a map, and the map was blank, and you had to identify the different countries of Europe. And yeah, it's the Middle Ages, borders change, but generally what is where, right? And aside from me, almost nobody in the classroom was able to identify a country that belonged to Europe, and it was on this blank map, including Italy, by the way, which was the most identifiable country on the map. And the girl beside me was like, I think it's Italy, but I'm not sure. I never felt so embarrassed for someone in my entire life. I had to leave. I was like, I went to talk to the professor after class, and I was like, I don't understand. I understand why you did this lesson, because people don't know, but I can't imagine being 20 years old and not knowing where anything is on a map.
Yeah, it's pretty pathetic. And I've seen like videos of that people are just asking like dumb Americans or something like that, and they have like a map, and it's like, show me where America is, and it's without labels and stuff, right? And it's like they have no fucking clue.
Yeah.
And that's kind of the level of knowledge that people have about history, geography.
Hmm.
It's pretty sad, yeah. And so you think students should not be applying to university if they're not capable of taking on those challenges?
Absolutely. If you are, and this is like, if you're not prepared to, if you don't know how to read a map and you can't write an essay that's grammatically correct for the most part, I don't think you can succeed in university at all, because most of your classes will want you to read, write, and do it well. And this is your chance to make connections. And if you're not doing well, the professor's not going to take note of you. You're not going to have the grades to pursue further education. You're really just putting yourself into debt. And if you have to take extra years to better yourself to go to school, fine. But I don't think it's necessary for everyone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not an insult to anyone. It just means I think people need to really take a hard look at themselves and see where their interests lie and what are they actually good at, and not just go to school because mom and dad said I'll pay for it, or because your friends want you to go party with them. Like, this is your future. Really take it seriously and think, what do I want to do? Maybe college is better for me. Maybe becoming an entrepreneur is better, or I can just go work in a business and work my way up. Maybe I enjoy that better.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't mean you're stupid or anything.
Yeah.
It's just what works best for you based on your abilities and your interests.
Yeah, and there just seems to be like this societal pressure of, oh, I gotta get a paper. I gotta get a paper out of this university.
Yep.
Or it's just the parents pushing it, or their peer group is pushing it. Although that's maybe something not they're not capable of doing because they haven't grown enough,
Hmm.
or maybe they just shouldn't do it at all because they're not passionate about it. It's like, why are you going into something you don't even like doing?
Yeah, there's a lot of people who go like after first year, before it's even done, they drop out.
Yeah,
Like, your classroom has like 500 people in it, and then by the end of the term, there's like 100.
yeah, yeah, and that's the reality. I think I'm not sure of the exact numbers, but the first day we walked into my first class, Kin 1000, where they said we had like over 5,500 students in that program.
Mm-hmm.
And they said, well, guess what? By the end of the term, not even half of you will be here.
Yep.
And that's just kind of the reality. That just shows like, yeah, you guys, like, not everybody should go to university.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I know a system that mostly used in Europe is that you can't go into a specific program just because you decided to and based on your grades in high school. You have to pass a test. You have to
Mm-hmm.
pass, like, let's say you're going into history studies or art studies, you're going to have to do some sort of an exam in order to pass it, and then you would be admitted knowing that you have the basic general knowledge
Yeah.
and the skills to do so. It doesn't really evaluate your life skills and how good you are at handling challenges, but it's
Mm-hmm.
just another obstacle before students pay their money to these institutions that are just going to take it and never give it back.
Yeah, they used to have tests in my when I was leaving high school going into college, like trying to apply for colleges and universities. I remember writing tests, and I went to a few art programs, and they did require or apply to certain art programs, and they did require a portfolio and a portfolio of your to see how good your work is.
Mm-hmm.
That doesn't seem to be a thing very much now. It seems like it's
Yeah.
just open to anyone because the schools are more interested in collecting funds than they are about having successful students.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the whole purpose of university, is to conduct research, get successful students, those who are passionate about the research that they're doing at the universities, and to better and grow society. But it has turned into a business, and that's what we've seen from all aspects of the universities. The way they conduct things these days is
Hmm.
it's purely business based, and that's unfortunate because it would be nice to have institutions that aren't simply based in terms of making money, but they actually care about the work that they do, the kind of research they do,
Hmm.
and their whole purpose is to serve as a place of free speech and a place for freedom of discussion.
Hmm.
But that is definitely not something you've experienced.
No, it finally caught up with me. I mean, I think we've all seen that Jordan Peterson video where he was outside Sydney Smith having a bit of a rant about what was going on in the school. And that became popular. And then I didn't think I'd run into my situation the way I did. I'm not surprised. Um, but
Well, let's talk about what happened
hmm.
in terms of your situation, and we're gonna, talk all about censorship, tie that
Oh,
into
yeah.
what's going on right now.
Mhm.
So tell me the story. I don't know the story.
So basically, last year my GPA was high enough that I got an email saying, apply for the Jackman Humanities Institute scholarship, known as Scholars in Residence.
Mhm.
So if there was none of this COVID stuff, this would have been an in-person scholarship. So I would spend a month living on res on campus, working alongside a professor. So a bunch of professors put up projects that are available that you can apply for and you can work alongside them. And then I would live on campus for a month and you get like $1,000 and a food stipend. So it's supposed to be this sort of prestigious scholarship. I applied for it and I got picked. And which means the professor picked me. So I decided to work with Professor Natalie Rothman. She's a professor of history at the University of Toronto Scarborough campus, and yeah, I got picked, and that was back in I think March. I got accepted, and then the actual scholarship starts in May, and I worked for her for a week. The weekend came. I got a strange email from Ira Wells and Angela Esterhammer. They're both professors at University of Toronto, but I think they were also holding administrative roles with this scholarship program. And all the email said was, we need to have a meeting Monday morning, 9 a.m. Like,
So after a week into the scholarship program.
yeah. And it was bizarre because it's like, why are you sending me an email like this on a Friday night or Saturday morning? I can't remember which one it was, but no context. It's just 9 a.m. meeting. So I pushed it at the back of my mind, but I had a feeling something was up. And then Monday morning rolls around, and Angela and Ira are on, it's a Teams call, and they're like, "You've been removed from Professor Natalie Rothman's program, and because of your so-called racist tirades and your anti-decolonizing sentiments." But we are offering you to work with a different project. And Angela was like, I have one that you can work with, and I know you applied for it as a second option. You can work with that. Let us know by noon what you want to do. And I was like, what is this? I'm just being bombarded by two people accusing me of being a racist. There is absolutely no context to what they're saying. There's no evidence. There's nothing. It's just, hi, you're a racist. Natalie Rothman kicked you out of her program, so here's other options that you can work
So
with.
you're too racist to be in this specific scholarship program, but you're just not racist enough for these other
Yeah,
programs.
allegedly, because there is no context. They were just pulling things out of the air. Like, I don't know what this meeting was
Right.
about. They didn't show me anything. They just said, you're a racist. And your Natalie Rothman says that you're not, you're going to make her workplace unsafe. And this is all online, by the way, at this point, because it's during COVID lockdowns, right? So I don't know how I can make a classroom unsafe. Like, I literally was sitting there going, what did I do in the week that I was in this program? 1 week. What did I do or say from my computer screen that makes me a racist? Allegedly. I'm like,
Right.
I didn't even talk to anybody. I'm such a quiet person, so I don't know where this came from. And the fact that they wouldn't provide the context of where this is coming from, it's just Natalie Rothman says so, is very concerning. I mean, she's a professor of history. She understands what censorship is and what it means, and she's participating in this. So she clearly has an agenda here.
Right.
And and so I talked to my partner about the situation because I had nothing to say to these two people, Angela and Ira. At that moment, I was just kind of like, whoa, let me think on this. And I wrote to them after saying, I want to have another meeting or discuss this further. Like, what do you mean I'm a racist? Like, where did this information, where is these allegations coming from? You didn't provide me context. You didn't, like, I can't respond to you unless I have context as where this is coming from. And I don't feel comfortable just accepting an offer to work with someone else. Like, I'm allegedly too racist for Natalie Rothman. I'm allegedly racist enough for Angela or someone else. How does that make any sense?
Right.
So I write to them, just about my concerns, and their response was basically dismissive. They're like, well, it's sad this happened, let's kind of move on. We're offering you to work with another project. This whole scholarship only lasts a month. You got to hurry up and pick what you want to do. And it's like, why are you being dismissive of me? Why are you accusing me of something? There's no evidence. I have no idea what's going on. This professor just went behind my back to make false accusations about me. So why are you covering it up? What's going on?
So, so what do you think was the reason they did that?
Well,
Like, I mean, this is all speculation, obviously.
yeah. So this whole ordeal lasted about 2 months. And in that 2 months, it came to be known that when they decided to show me this evidence, they said, oh, it's from your social media, right? And I'm like, that's strange because my social media is not under my name.
Right.
So how did someone find my social media and know that I'm in this program, this scholarship program? My social media and my first name are not even close. So either the professor somehow discovered it on her own accord and didn't like my opinions, or somebody sought me out, which is vile.
Yeah.
That's very malicious, I have to say, to do that. But like I said, this whole thing took 2 months, and in that 2 months, it was just back and forth, like, what is this evidence? What is this context? I want to know, I want answers. And they're like, just pick a program, move on with your life. And if I were to accept their offer, it'd be me accepting their premise. I'm not going to do that.
Right.
And so I wrote to the provost, Sandy Welsh, one of the most useless people at UofT, who gave me a cookie cutter email, which she's famous for, after 2 weeks of me sending her an email telling her my ordeal and wanting answers. Mm-hmm. And then she was like, well, just talk to Ira Wells again. It's like, oh, so I'm getting this runaround now.
No, they're pushing you to different people.
Yeah, so I have to email Ira and make an appointment to see what's going on. And here's another thing. They told my references for this scholarship. I had to get 2 references. They told 2 of them what happened. So without my permission, right?
So they went behind your back,
yeah,
talked to your references, and told them from their own perspective about what was going on.
Yeah, and I, at that point, had no idea why this was happening.
Right, you still don't know the accusations and why they're coming from.
Yeah.
They just mentioned social media, but didn't say anything specific.
Yeah, and to have my references know, it's like, well, who else knows? I can't control who talks now. You didn't even ask my consent about this. You're just going behind my back through this whole ordeal, chit-chatting with who knows who. And then they're like, oh, if you're upset about this situation, here's a link for some counseling. It's like, right, I need counseling. That's pretty insulting, I have to say. And then I did receive an email from one of my references. It was kind of strange, and she just was saying, like, oh, I'm supportive of you, you should keep doing what you're doing. But it was because of the timing, it's obvious she knew what was going on. And I was so uncomfortable, this whole ordeal. Like, I'm being accused. Everyone knows what it is, and no one's telling me or showing me context, or like, I don't know, like, why is everyone else allowed to say what I am and I'm not allowed to defend myself here?
Well, yeah, because you don't know what it's about. But
And
did
nobody.
you ever find out?
Yes, I did. I finally got a meeting after 2 months with Ira Wells. And he was like, "It's from your social media." Now, from the Twitter, my Twitter account specifically, I am suspended from Twitter permanently because I'm anti-mandate. What they showed me was even old. It was older content from my Twitter account, and it was two posts. So one was anti-Trudeau, and I think, was pointing out some hypocrisy about Trudeau actually being a racist. You know, he goes around with blackface, and everyone gives him an applause and a pass. You know, someone else points out his hypocrisy, all of a sudden they're the racist. And then the other one was a BLM meme. And it's like, that's it. That's what gets me into trouble. These old tweets with no context. Like, these people don't even understand what I was doing or
Right.
pointing out. And that's all it takes. So somebody went to that much trouble to dig through my suspended Twitter account to find something damning to get me in trouble.
To get you off the scholarship program. But it seems like they were doing that on purpose just to get you off of this program, because I mean, so they went out of their way
Hmm.
to look at some sort of social media thing that you were posting about anti-mandates, which I mean, we do have the we still have freedom of speech. We have the
Yeah.
right to express our opinion about what's going on in the world.
Hmm.
Um, but so they took that as you being racist. They kind of just, how did they
Well,
tie that together?
I don't know, because like the account was suspended for being anti-mandate. So somebody went scrolling through months and months of posts, because I was like on Twitter all the time. So that's a lot of work to just scroll through someone's old account to
Right,
find something damning. And how they connected that account with me, I don't know, because it's not my name. It's
right,
under a different name. So there's something malicious on going on there. Somehow somebody knew I had this scholarship. And Ira and Angela, despite offering me to work on another program or project, it really, that was just their way of trying to shut me up. They didn't want to deal with the situation. When I would talk to them in person, like through a Teams call, um, they were uncomfortable with the whole situation. They kept trying to, they would talk really quickly. They wanted things to just move on. So it's like, you're clearly uncomfortable with the situation. You probably think it's stupid as well. Why can't you just be straightforward? Why do we have to do this roundabout? Who cares about Natalie Rothman and what her opinions?
yeah,
Those are her opinions, and I don't agree with them. And I think like she went behind my back to do this. That's a malicious act itself. Like she wouldn't even talk to me. There's no critical thinking. There's no hey Josephine, I want to talk to you because I saw this, can you explain it? No, it's literally like evil, get rid of her, you know. And what happens to Natalie Rothman? She gets to go off and live her life without being accountable for what she did. Same with Ira Wells and Angela and anyone else involved. They get to live their lives like nothing happened.
hmm,
And they told me, we're not going to tell anyone else about what happened. It's like, yeah, I'm supposed to trust you after everything. And here's another funny part of this whole thing was, because I chose not to participate in the scholarship, I thought I wasn't going to get the money that was involved. You get like $1,000. Well, one day I woke up and there was $1,000 sitting in my bank account. No, with no email, no one said anything. There's just $1,000 unexplained in my bank account. So I'm like, is this what, hush money? like, like
better stay quiet now.
yeah. And it was like, this is the most utterly ridiculous scenario I've encountered being a university student. And I felt very violated, and
Yeah.
I didn't really know how to proceed after that, because I wasn't sure how many people knew. What am I going to run into problems with other professors? Like I wasn't sure how to maneuver.
Yeah, and this is the dangers of censorship, because I mean, you were just anti-mandate. Like, what's so malicious
And
about
that didn't
that?
even come up in any of our discussions. With it
Yeah.
was just about two posts they interpreted as racist.
And well, and that really has nothing to do with your work. and the scholarship that you were involved with.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting the way they combined the two and decided to strip you off the things that you have earned,
Yeah.
like you've earned through your work, through your academics, through studying hard, making connections, and they stripped everything away from you, um, based on some allegations that they've made up on their own, which is,
Hmm.
it seems unfair. Like there's no trial, there's nobody to like judge whether the situation is fair or not. They just
Hmm.
kind of removed you from,
Yeah.
very strange grounds. And that's kind of like, this happened before any of these bills are in place. I mean, none of these bills are in place at the moment, but
No.
a lot of them are making through the hearings now. Like Bill C11, C10. They're talking about censorship, or at least the manipulation of the way that information is going to be distributed on social media platforms, and the things that are going to be popular, or the things that will be promoted, and the things that won't be promoted. So it just leads to further censorship of ideas that we are trying to
Hmm.
encourage people. It's like, well, I am anti-mandate,
Hmm.
and why does that make me a racist about this? Or
Yeah.
why does that make me a bad person, right?
Hmm.
And that's what everybody has to think about, is that, well, one day you are going to disagree with what the government thinks as well, or what the institution thinks.
Hmm.
And what you're going to have to do is just cave because there's a law.
Yeah.
And that's the dangers of the situation that people are not strictly talking a lot about, because these bills that are incoming are scary bills. Like that gives them legal grounds
Yeah.
to prosecute you. They did this without the bills.
Yeah.
Imagine what they can do with the fucking bills.
Yeah, if one of those bills like had passed, like the one where they can just the hate speech one,
Yeah,
right? If that had passed prior to this situation,
that's Bill C-36 for
then I
context.
could possibly have been like fined or,
Yeah.
jailed or
Well,
something,
it's a so Bill C-36 is actually a change. Um, it amends the Canadian Human Rights Act
Hmm.
and the Criminal Code. So there's a potential for being criminally charged for, saying that you're anti-mandate.
Yep.
That is potentially where we could go. I mean, I'm not saying that this is exactly where the things will lead, but that's the potential. That gives them the power to do so.
Yeah, and if they're already going after people with, allegations prior to any bills being, passed, they the sentiment is already there. Like these people in the universities, these professors believe in this nonsense. They believe that they are somehow right
Yeah.
in what they think, and that because you are a student, it's my job to fix you or to punish you. And it's like a professor is a human being. They make errors themselves. They should not be revered. They should be questioned. That's how you learn, by questioning, right? And these professors don't get questioned. Like I said, in the classroom, there's already a fear. People don't want to speak,
Yeah.
right?
Well, like you mentioned, a lot of students put professors on pedestals, and they kind of glorify them as this
Yeah.
supreme being that knows everything. But I mean, university is all about questioning things, and it's
Hmm.
all about questioning different stands on, especially when you're talking about things like arts, that is
Yeah.
very subjective. And so, but that's not something that is promoted anymore. It's kind of shunned upon if you're going to question things. And
Hmm.
you mentioned that your professors do know history. They do know
They,
what censorship is,
yeah, they do. And
but they refused to acknowledge the reality that we're in now.
yeah, they choose to participate in censorship, and if they aren't really participating in it, because it's sometimes it's hard to tell which professors are on your side if they are on your side. I know there's a lot of professors playing it safe,
Hmm.
so certain things just don't get addressed, or they choose their words very carefully when they're lecturing in class, or just even giving instructions about an assignment. Like I had a science class where I had to write an essay, and the professor literally said, "It's okay if you don't use proper English for this essay."
What?
She was going to accept slang on the essay and
Okay.
stuff. I'm like, and then she started to explain herself, to explain why, because I know not everyone, has great English skills. And I was just like, okay, but we're all in university. There's an expectation here already. So the fact that she's defending, like trying to defend what she's saying, saying,
Yeah.
oh, you don't have to hand in your best work, right?
Well, it just gives the students the permission to be mediocre. It
Yes.
doesn't like give them the incentive to strive for learning and becoming better and growing.
Mm-hmm.
It just says like, oh, you don't really know like great English, so don't even try. Like just use your slang.
Yeah, mediocrity is being accepted on a wide scale. It's like, what happened to working hard and standing up for your convictions, having an opinion, right? I'm not ashamed of what I posted. I'm not ashamed of my ideas.
Yeah.
If somebody doesn't like them, well, then tell me why. Don't just be like you're an evil person. Tell me exactly why. Explain yourself. Stop using labels. But that's what they do. It's all labels, right?
Yeah.
They just use a slogan, a mantra, a label, and all of a sudden, your destiny has been decided by the court of public opinion. It's sheer lunacy at this point.
Yeah, and that's the thing I see is that by just reading quickly through like summary of the bills, everything is so vague and everything
Yeah.
like all the words that are used is just like so broad and it's like it sounds amazing. Like,
Hmm.
oh great, they're gonna make my life better and they're gonna prevent me from hate speech and all this kind of
Yeah.
stuff. But it's like that's the problem with it is that it's not specific in terms of saying, oh, we're only going to prevent things that will harm you,
Hmm.
but they can take that any route they want. And
Oh
of
yeah.
course, the government has, and by they, I mean the government, the institutions, the government has already shown their stance on things like vaccine hesitancy
Hmm.
and on things like mask mandates and lockdowns. They've already shown their position on that. So what makes you think that they're not going to be pushing those things when the bills do come out,
Oh yeah.
right?
I mean, I had professors this term that one of them specifically was like the first day of class. It's an online class, and the first day she's like, "Wear your masks." It's like this is an online class. Why is that your first thought,
Yeah.
right? Like it's so embedded in their minds. And professors, they love their positions in the universities. They get paid quite a bit. They get their grants, and especially if they're tenure. They've been
Yeah.
there a long
Oh
time.
yeah.
Oh yeah, they get their money. They get their fix. So yeah, of course they're gonna promote whatever they want.
Despite knowing the history.
Yeah, I mean they're erasing history, right? They're choosing to not acknowledge certain people in history. They're like, oh, that person was evil. Let's take down a statue of them and forget that they ever existed. It's like, yeah, history is full of a lot of bad deeds. There's a lot of terrible things, but why are you denying it? That's not going to help
Yeah.
anybody. Like knowing the bad things of our past should give us, some food for thought. It's supposed to help us be better people, not repeat the mistakes.
Yeah.
By erasing the mistakes, you're just gonna repeat them even more.
Yeah. Well, another thing I wanted to talk about is CSONT.
Hmm.
You're the founder.
Yes.
So tell me a little bit of your experience with students that we've had. I mean, I know a lot of the experiences. I've been there almost since the
Hmm.
start. But tell me your experience that you've had with, I mean, the students who are quote unquote trying to fight the mandates and um, the kind of experience we've been through.
Well, I would say there's a large enough group of them that dislike what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, what they're able to do for fighting against this, or what they're willing to do, that's another question. Because all it takes is to just not comply, just don't practice civil disobedience, and have the conviction to do it. Like you have to believe in it for it to work. If you're hesitant, of course you're not going to stop wearing your mask or just try to go to class. You're going to just find every excuse to not do it. And talking to some of these people, it's really difficult because you talk to them, they're like, yeah, I'm going to do it, I'm going to do it. And then when it comes time for them to do it, they don't. That's some of them. We've had some people who literally were so hesitant in the beginning, and then we said, hey, well, I've never worn a mask in my life and I am never going to. And then they're like, really? And then all of a sudden they slowly start to practice, our philosophy. And it's because they initiated it themselves. They heard us talk about it and they thought about it themselves and said, I'm going to give it a try. But that's the only way this works. Like, I can't force anyone to do these things. I can tell you about it. I can tell you how to go about it. But it's you, the individual, that has to believe in it and has to take that first step to face your fear. Yeah. Because that's what it is. They're afraid of the social pressures of being accosted by security. And most of the time, you're not going to be. It literally, so people do not like confrontation, even security guards. They don't. They're not going to really do anything. We've met some really passive security guards at York University, extreme passive.
Yeah, they just kind of do their own thing. They chatted with us and they told us that there was a mask mandate, and we're like, yeah, we know, cool. And then they just stood there and left. Most confrontations, that's the thing about fear, is that most people's fears never come to fruition. None of them most of them will never be as painful as you think they are.
Yeah.
And that's what most people don't realize. It's like, okay, well, a police officer comes up to you and tells you that, you shouldn't be here. Well, maybe you should have a conversation with the police officer. It doesn't mean that you're gonna, go into crazy interactions. They're gonna arrest you and take you to jail.
Yeah, they can't just arrest you. They don't just show up and be like, you're under arrest for just standing here. You know, they don't do that. You will have a conversation with them, but you have to believe in what you're doing and in yourself to do it. Yeah. And that's the hard part. That's the part no one can do for you. You have to do it yourself. But hey, when you start to do it, it gets easier. And when you're with other people who are living the same way, it's even easier. We all believe in the same thing, those of us who practice this. And that's why we're able to just live our lives daily and not, I walk into a store and, there's always all these people masked and I don't care. I'm like, they're choosing to do that. I'm choosing not to, whatever. If someone says something, I say my piece or I ignore them. Yeah. You don't owe these people anything, right? I mean, if you're afraid of confrontation, here's the thing. If somebody says something to you, some random person, you don't owe them a conversation. Just keep walking. If they start yelling at you, well, guess what? They're the ones that look crazy, not you. Because by the time people look to see what's going on, you've already turned the corner and that person's still there shouting, right? Yeah.
And then we've had a similar experience at York University. Remember when that lady was she was just going off. She looked crazy. But we're just like, oh, hey, we've got nothing to talk about here.
Yeah, have a nice day, lady.
Have a nice day. We're not going to agree on things. So, I think we should just move on, right?
Yeah.
But that she just kept going, and it just makes them look crazy. So it's about controlling your emotions and staying present.
Yeah, and just being you got to develop the convictions. You have to really look at yourself and be like, what do I stand for? Because I think part of the problem is people don't know what they stand for. They don't know necessarily what they're capable of because they've never really taken a hard look at themselves. And as a university student, you're an adult now. You're not a child anymore. Yeah. You have to be able to hold your own. And it's hard. It really is. But you have to do it. It's the only way to progress. Yeah. And you have to accept responsibility. And if you want things to change, you're going to be part of that responsibility. You have to be the change you want to see. So if that means a maskless world, well, stop wearing the mask. Don't have it in your bag. Don't carry one in case. Just leave it. Right? You have to do it. And you have to practice it. I understand it's hard, but I had to do it. My partner did it. We did it together. And that's another thing, finding support. I know a lot of people don't have that necessarily, but you got to seek it out. If you want the change, you want to do things, you got to leave your comfort zone. That's the only way. I believe Jordan Peterson has said this on multiple occasions. If you want to progress in life, you're going to have to do things that are hard. You got to leave your comfort zone. Yeah. Right.
Well, and Jordan Peterson talks a lot about taking risks when you're young. He says a lot of students are just or young adults, not specifically even students, just very complacent in what they're doing. They feel like they have, because society has made us believe that, hey, you can live in your parents' basement until
Yeah.
you're 35 and nobody will question it. It's all good,
Mm-hmm.
right? And that's how society is made out to be for the most part. But Jordan Peterson is questioning that narrative.
Yeah.
He's saying that it's not okay in your young years. That is the prime time for you to explore, for you to take risks, and this is a risk that some individuals are willing to take at CSONT, right?
Mm-hmm.
But it is not the majority that we're seeing, because if the majority had, this huge impact of I believe in this, I
Yeah.
believe we're gonna win, and having that thought of like, yeah, victory is inevitable for us.
Mm-hmm.
Mandates will be dropped as long as I keep doing this and this and this. But I feel like a lot of students feel very hopeless because they don't take action and they are afraid to even begin.
Yeah. They haven't looked at themselves long and hard and decided what their future is going to be. I find many of them still have a childlike way of looking at things, thinking mom and dad is going to fix everything. And mom and dad cannot fix everything, and they're not going to be around forever. And that's why you must take responsibility. You must grow up. You have to do it, or else we're just giving in to the government. We're giving into the institutions. We're telling them that we agree. We're just not good enough to live our own lives, right? I mean, that's the sentiment they're trying to get you to believe in. And I don't need the government to tell me how to live. I don't want them to tell me how to live. I want to choose that for myself,
Yeah.
right?
And we brought up an interesting point earlier when we were talking about that society, like in terms of a schooling system, at least the public school system, does not necessarily bring up the topic of responsibility, or
Mm-hmm.
does not really provide an opportunity for students to learn to take responsibility for their own lives. It's bringing up students to be reliable or reliant on other individuals, their parents, or the government itself, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, how many students you see that are complaining about tuition costs? And
Yeah.
it's like, yeah, you're paying for a service, so you got to pay for a service. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
don't understand why you need to, complain about paying for something and your student debt. Take the responsibility for that.
Yeah.
This is your education. This is your life.
Yeah.
It's like, you're not going to walk into a store and say, wow, this costs this much money and now I'm in debt. And now, babe, my daddy government is not going to come and save me and help
Mm-hmm.
me. So please help me out. No, like, get a job, make some money. Maybe don't go into university right away. Maybe work for a couple of years so you can save up, right? Everybody's in a different situation, but I think it stems from lack of responsibility, lack of conviction. Some people might not like the mandates, like mentioned. Some people are maybe they want the mandates to go away because that will make their life easier, but they're not willing to make the sacrifices to actually make that change because they were brought up in a system
Mm-hmm.
that told them somebody else will do it for you.
Yeah, that's a big problem. No one else is going to do it. Um, by not doing anything, we just
Yeah,
let the government. We're just saying, okay, government, it's up to you. And now we're here,
yeah,
and we're seeing what the damage that it has caused, and that it's continuing to cause. And at some point, that damage is maybe irreversible, or it's the only way for it to be reversible. To see actual change, it might not even be in our lifetime if we don't do it now.
yeah.
Make these changes and get these students to understand you're responsible for yourself.
Yeah, and I mean, the reason I guess CSONT was even made in the first place, or was the idea of it, was that students are typically the ones who have the least amount of responsibility to begin with, right? I mean, most don't have a family,
Mm-hmm.
most don't have uh, children, most don't have a mortgage to take care of.
Yeah.
So therefore, what are they losing if you're going to fight?
Yeah, well, in the past, it's always been students who were the major protesters. It can go all the way back to the '60s and see that. I don't know, like, what has made them so docile now, because, like, I have a rebel spirit, and I know you have a rebel spirit, and there's a few of us that really have that, but it doesn't seem to be catching on,
It's
you
rare.
know?
It
Yeah.
is rare these days. It's hard to find people who are willing to actually do the work and willing to take responsibility. It's like, yeah, you got to accept the present situation and take responsibility for changing that.
Yeah, but there's this whole like, just keep your, like, I've been told by some people, well, why don't you just keep your head down and let things pass. It's like, that's not going to help.
Hmm.
If we all just hide, you're still agreeing with the government's premise. You're letting them have the power. And it's really difficult to overcome, to get people to see that, not just see it, but to practice it. That's where I'm at a loss. I don't really know how the individual gets gets that will to just do it and be like, you know
Right.
what, these Josephine or CSONT or Andre, they're right. We got to do this. I mean, it's been 2 years.
Yeah. And that's the thing is that I believe, what we're offering is like you got to make the change yourself. You got to take responsibility for yourself.
Hmm.
But because the narrative or the culture is that, oh, I'm going to rely on somebody else to do it,
Yeah.
or I'm just going to be a supporter, um, and some sort of hero is going to make the change for me, like
Hmm.
Jordan Peterson or Julie Ponesi, or some other doctor that is going to come out and do an amazing speech, or maybe the Ryerson students are going to win
Hmm.
their lawsuit, and everything's going to be fine and dandy. I don't need to do anything. That's over, right? But the reality is that we don't have a winning fight in the court system, and we don't have a winning fight in the political system. So
Yeah.
it's about making individual change, and that's not popular. And I think it is difficult for individuals to accept the fact that, wow, it's really me who's going to have to do it.
Yeah. It means you got to grow up. I mean, Jordan Peterson talks about that a lot. You just got to do it. You can't avoid it. Avoiding it just lets the evil win.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much more it's going to take for people to break out of their safety nets. Just do it. And I think we just have a culture of weakness and acceptance of weakness as well. You know?
Yeah, and just to those who are still, they kind of believed in the whole, oh, things are getting better, the mandates are being
Yeah.
dropped. Well, the reality is that some of the universities are starting to um, put the mask mandates back in place. I think University of Ottawa at the moment, I mean,
Yeah.
this video is going to be released a little bit later, but at the moment, some of the universities have extended their mask mandates
Mm-hmm.
indefinitely because originally they promised that they would drop them May 1st.
Yep.
And that never happened because they just simply extended it, and their reasoning is because the medical field is keeping it in place, therefore we must keep it in place.
Yeah.
So for those of you who have thought that this might be
Ooh.
over for a second, or things are actually getting better and we're never going to see masks again, or we're not going to see your vaccination mandates again, it's like that is a very naive way of thinking because the culture has not shifted. Things have not actually changed.
Mm-hmm.
They're just giving you a little bit of freedom to live mediocre life in the summer
Yep.
until the elections happen. Our provincial elections are going on,
Mm-hmm.
and my prediction is that very likely the vaccination mandates will be back in place after September time once students are enrolled again. And they're going to
Mm-hmm.
get fucked over once again by paying tuition and
Yep.
then being deregistered from their classes,
Yeah.
which is unfortunate reality. But this is something that I'm warning the
Mm-hmm.
students of because we are going to be speaking to new students that are coming out of high schools and they're thinking that, okay, finally I can go in. Well, things are not over.
Yeah, as long as the mask mandate sticks around, nothing is ever going to change because the mask is a sign of compliance, it's obedience, and by wearing it, they know that they can trust you to obey.
Yeah.
Those of us who choose not to practice this nonsense, we're standing up for ourselves. We're saying we're not going to be controlled by you, but that's why the mask has to go,
Yeah.
right?
That's the
Because
first thing.
it has to. If it doesn't, everything else will just get worse. So I don't know why everyone thinks like that right now we're going back to normal. This isn't normal at all. I remember my life in 2019. There was none of this,
Yeah.
none of this. But people, even on our side, have accepted this as some sort of normality. And
Yeah.
it's like, just because most stores have dropped the mandate for masking doesn't mean it's gone. And in fact, many places, institutions such as the public libraries, the museums, and galleries have put up notices saying, yeah, the mask is optional, but we highly recommend you wear it. So the push for you to do that is still there.
Right.
Yeah,
And it's not going to change until we all take responsibility for
hmm
our own lives.
absolutely.
So thank you for speaking with me today, Josephine.
Hmm.
It was a pleasure to have you on. And for our viewers, we are going to chat with you soon. Thank you for joining us.
Yeah, it was great to be here.